think Christmas must have come early. The health and fitness nerd inside of me, the one that literally started this YouTube channel for the purpose of just like running N=1 experiments on myself to see how my body would respond to like different diets and different protocols, and just like get an assessment of how my body works specifically, is just rejoicing right now because I have access to Levels. Levels uses continuous glucose monitors to give you precision real-time data on your body and how it's responding to things. And I'm obsessed with the idea of like CGMs and glucose tracking. I think this is gonna be like one of the next hugely important revolutions in the health and fitness industry. And I'm sure I'll get into that in another portion of this video. Right now, just gonna put my first CGM on. So you guys are on this journey with me. Got the box, 3 continuous glucose monitors. Download the app. Makes sense as, you know, a first step. Alrighty, giving it access to my Apple Health data, which is connected to my Oura Ring. So I think it's gonna be able to pull from that, which is great. Give it my goals: avoid disease, slow aging. That sounds great. So I just got to pick 3 habits, and I'm just gonna do the fun habit loops. I don't have an Apple Watch, so I never get the little loops. Now I get the loops, that's fun. It's the next day. Why? Because one of the last tips on the thing was to put it on first thing in the morning. So went to bed, here we are. Roughly there. Might as well just, oh God, it smells like alcohol. Duh. This is what the picture is demonstrating. So ready to get stabby. Push. Felt literally nothing. Oh no, I feel a little bit, but it's fine. Pairing complete. Wow, the cat has come to investigate. Thank you, Cleo. Thank you so much. I think I did it. I think I just gotta put my little Levels patch on. I'm gonna feel like such a cool kid walking around with those. I'm not even joking. Like when I see people with like the Levels CGM, I'm like, you know what's up. Like, you know how cool CGM data is. I'm gonna be part of the little club now. It's the same as when I see people walking around in like Vivo barefoot shoes or like with an Oura Ring. I'm like, you get it. Now I get to get it. So cool. I'm gonna stop being a nerd. No, I'm not. Don't mess this up, Marissa. Oh, I wrinkled it. That's okay. Look at me! I'm a cool kid now. I cannot emphasize enough how excited I am to be using Levels. Like, this is something that I have been wanting to do for years. And this is because one of the single biggest predictors of how long you're going to live and how good you're going to feel while you're living is your metabolic health. Your metabolic health being not just like your metabolic rate, like how many calories you can eat to not gain fat, but rather how your body metabolizes inputs, mainly nutrition. And your metabolic health as a whole can be hard to measure and quantify, but one of the best ways to track how metabolically healthy you are is to track your body's glucose response. Insulin resistance is one of the 5 main factors that contribute to metabolic syndrome, which in itself increases the risk of stroke, heart attack, type 2 diabetes, and a number of other not so fun conditions. Higher glucose variability, so essentially how high your glucose gets and how low it gets, as well as more peaks in glucose, so like chronically elevated glucose levels throughout the day, are independently associated with accelerated rates of disease and death, even in non-diabetics. So monitoring your glucose is one of the biggest and most immediately impactful things you can do to boost your overall vitality and longevity. So I'm so excited to start using Levels and start learning what foods specifically are helpful for me versus unhelpful for me based on my like unique personal data, and having the actual immediate feedback of concrete data rather than just relying on like subjectively how I'm feeling, which is also a good thing to keep track of, but like also having the hard data I think is going to give me a very unique insight into my body. And you guys know me, I am all about bio-individuality and treating your body as an N=1 and really leaning into optimizing based on your own unique physiology, biology, etc. So essentially, Levels helps you see how your diet and lifestyle can directly impact your health using real-time feedback from a continuous glucose monitor. And right now, Levels is offering you guys an additional 2 free months of the Levels annual membership if if you go through my link, levels.link/fitandnerdy. I don't know how long this offer is going to last, so if you have been interested in diving into your own metabolic health, learning about your own individual glucose response, then definitely take advantage of this. I'll leave a link down in the description box below. So I've got my CGM on, it's working. I think my plan for this first week of using it is just to eat the way that I normally do and not let the data influence my decisions, because I think it'd be really easy to just immediately try to like gamify my diet, basically just only eat in a way that I know is going to completely minimize blood sugar spikes and all of that, and then not actually learn as much as I probably could. And I really want to use this as a learning opportunity about my body, not just as a health optimization tool. And like, yes, it is a health optimization tool, but I think there's just so much more that I can learn from it if I allow myself to like explore and dabble in things, and maybe eat something that's like super high in sugar and see how my body responds. Maybe eat closer to bed and see how my body responds. Maybe some nights have a salad as I normally would, and then other nights have like a burger or a pizza or something that maybe is a little bit less common in my, I eat a lot of burgers actually. I should probably test a burger, but like a pizza or something that I wouldn't have in my diet as much, but isn't something that I exclude from my diet. Like, I want to kind of just get a baseline and see how my body responds to these different things that are a part of my diet before I go about like shifting my diet to see what I can do to optimize my blood sugar response. So I'm literally like 2 days into using Levels, and I already like the level of awareness that has been brought to my food feels like the same level of awareness as like when I first started tracking macros, and I was like, oh my god, like there was just so much that I didn't know about what I was putting in my body until I started tracking what I was putting in my body. And now it's kind of like, it feels like the same like awakening. Like I'm already being made aware of things that would not be like immediately obvious. I feel like I'm in for some good learning. So at this point, I have had several ice mochas with almond milk, sometimes caffeinated, sometimes decaf, and the findings have been interesting. As you know, if you watch my videos, I really like to wake up, go walk to the coffee shop, get my ice mocha with almond milk, and then walk home and like walk around a little bit. And apparently, as one would expect, but I didn't expect it to have this much of an impact, it doesn't completely negate the glucose spike, but it greatly minimizes the glucose spike. So this one morning I had ice mocha with almond milk, and then I got in my car and I drove, so like no walking, and my glucose spiked to 153. So that's kind of like baseline. If I have it and don't do any activity whatsoever, that's roughly what in theory my glucose is gonna spike to. And the next day, get this, this is where I had my ice mocha with almond milk, and I also went on a walk. Basically no glucose spike whatsoever. It's like walking while drinking it, I essentially burned glucose at the same rate that it was getting released into my bloodstream. So I just think that is like a super interesting data point. And we know that walking after meal is going to decrease your blood sugar, so like this is not revolutionary by any means. I just think it's so interesting that like it basically zeroed it out. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. So unfortunately, it looks like if I'm trying to optimize my glucose, kombucha first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, not a good idea. Which is crushing, because I'm also trying to give up the habit of having my ice mocha with almond milk every morning. And I was gonna replace it with a nice, healthy kombucha full of probiotics, but like, look at what it did to my blood sugar this morning has forced me to come to terms with the fact that kombucha is literally pure sugar. Like there's nothing else, and I mean it's fermented tea, there's probiotics, like there are health benefits to it. It's not like it's bad for you, but there's just probably healthier ways for me to have the kombucha that isn't first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. So today I was like very intentional about it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to treat this like I would my coffee. Like I'm going to walk a little bit like I would to walk to the coffee shop, drink my kombucha while walking, and keep walking the same distance that it would with my coffee. Didn't work. Still had a glucose spike. I mean, it wasn't terrible. Like this is where I had the kombucha, so this is about where I started walking, and you can see it's still spiked up by 33 points. It only got to, what does that say? 128-ish? Which again, not terrible, but just nowhere near as good as the coffee with a walk. But then, this is the crazy thing. It
crashed. My CGM gave me an alert that my blood sugar was crashing. It was like, do what you need to do to save your blood sugar. Clearly I was fine, but like that spike and then crash, that's not what I want to see. So in the spirit of trying to optimize my blood sugar this week, I think tomorrow I'll just start with water with electrolytes. Still adding electrolytes to that, but just like plain water with some salt and magnesium. Nothing flavored, nothing fancy, just baseline. We'll go from there. With these revelations about kombucha versus ice mochas with almond milk and how they affect my blood sugar, I do think it's important to mention here that blood sugar is not the like end-all be-all defining factor of whether or not a food is healthy or helpful for you. Because if one were to only look at blood sugar, they would say only drink ice mochas with almond milk, never drink kombucha. But when you consider all things that impact your metabolic health, that clearly is not the right answer. The right answer would be continue drinking kombucha, but maybe incorporate it into more balanced meals so that you're not having it by itself, so you're not getting as sharp of a glucose spike from it. But this is why tracking your glucose with levels is such a powerful guide, because if you were to look at ice mocha with almond milk versus kombucha, like objectively without thinking about glucose, you would say obviously the kombucha is going to be a lot healthier. It's full of probiotics and not full of additives. But now thanks to this data, I can see where I am consuming foods that are otherwise objectively healthy, helpful, but not necessarily consuming them in a way that is optimal for me and my body and how my body responds to them. So now that I have this data and I know these things, I can now choose to drink kombucha maybe with my breakfast or with my dinner. And I can still get the benefits of the kombucha, but I will be incorporating it into my life in a way that is holistically more metabolically optimized for my body. And that's something that I really would not have known if I hadn't been tracking my blood sugar. I have very unfortunately discovered that white rice and I, we're not friends. Anytime I eat a meal with white rice in it, glucose just whoop, up there. 'Tis unfortunate, but good to know. So something that I think is super important to note as I am discovering foods that my body is having big glucose reactions to is the fact that different people's bodies are different, right? Bio-individuality. So whether it's kombucha or white rice or sweet potato or certain fruit or something, if there's something that my body doesn't respond optimally to from a glucose standpoint, it doesn't mean that your body will have the same reaction. Like you might be able to have a kombucha and have your glucose be relatively fine, but an ice mocha with almond milk might make your glucose a little bit unhappy. This is why getting personalized data is so powerful and why I think it really is the next step in like healthcare and health optimization. And this has been really helpful for me seeing how to kind of personalize my diet around how my body is responding to the various inputs dietarily. And this is something I have been loving about the Levels app, is that for every meal, it gives you a meal score that uses all the different data, like the area under the glucose curve, the height of the glucose spike, etc., to determine like how optimized that meal was for your body metabolically. Okay, tonight I'm gonna go get a pizza. I didn't add this in like intentionally tonight specifically to test it for my blood glucose, but I made plans with a friend and I was like, here's 3 different restaurants. She picked the pizza place, so we're getting pizza, and it's gonna be nice to have that data to see how my body responds to the pizza. Wish me luck. Conclusion from experiment pizza. Pizza's probably not necessarily the best thing for my blood sugar. Good to know. Just data. All data is good data. All data is helpful. Alrighty. New sensor time. New sensor time. I didn't read this last time. Wipey wipey. Cleany cleany. Did I do that right? I hope so. It's there. Mama? Heck yeah. Thank you. You're welcome. Everybody say thank you to Mom and Nerdy in the comments. Something that's been really cool and interesting to see as I've gone through this process is how different lifestyle factors affect how my body responds to certain foods, because y'all know me, been having my chocolate frosty smoothie bowl very, very regularly, and on different days it doesn't necessarily have the exact same glucose response. Like, it's not wildly different from day to day, but like this is a day where I had it where I didn't get as good quality sleep the night before, and so you can see that it spiked by 32 points. But this day I did get good quality sleep, and as you can see it went up a little bit, but then it came back down. It didn't have like a huge spike there. Isn't that so interesting? I think it's so cool.
So I've now been using levels for almost 20 days, and I feel like based on the data that I'm getting, my blood glucose is not the best. It's not the worst, it's not bad, but like based off of the data that they have and what they say is like the threshold for like really good glucose versus like okay, I'm not really good. Also about to go out of town for a couple days, so that's gonna be like, I'm gonna have not no control over what I eat, but it's gonna be a lot harder to like specifically try to optimize glucose. But I think when I get back, I'm gonna test out some meals that like very specifically should be optimal for my blood glucose. Like, I've been having my chocolate frosty smoothie bowl most mornings, and like according to this data, it's not bad, but it's sending my glucose a little bit out of the range that level says to look for as like an optimal glucose range post meal. So just as an example of where I'm like just a little bit higher than it necessarily recommends, is my average glucose for the last 7 days has been 108. They recommend aiming for an average under 100. The level's community average is 107, which like not terrible, not like necessarily concerning, but for someone who is as health conscious as I am, maybe this is just the perfectionist in me wanting to get the A+ gold star on everything, but I feel like I should be doing better. Also, like, my meal score average is 5.5. They recommend aiming, it's out of 10, they recommend aiming for a 7 or higher. The community average is 6, so like I'm very close to the average again, but I'm pretty far below what they recommend aiming for. Lastly, my current average stability score is a 76, 5-day average of 78, 7-day average of 76. They recommend a stability score of 85 or above. The average is 79. Interestingly, it does say that the average score for month 1 for users is 65 and month 2 is 70. So I'm doing better than most people on month 1. And to be fair, I am learning a lot. And I think once I get back from my trip and I can be super consistent and like test out things, I do think I could get that score up pretty easily with all this data that I have. And now knowing like that, you know, kombucha gonna spike my glucose, going to not ruin my scores, but like it's not the best for my scores. After reviewing my data so far, I realized you guys might be thinking, Marissa, like if you're only a couple points off from what it is suggested you should be at, like why are you concerned about this? Why are you working on like optimizing your blood sugar? You're clearly not pre-diabetic or diabetic. But I just think it's really important to be careful with this kind of thing, because glucose response is a spectrum. It's not like all of a sudden one day a switch flips and you go from being normal to being pre-diabetic. Insulin resistance creeps up on you over time. And so if you're not in the optimal range, you may be at risk of sliding very slowly into the not optimal range. So monitoring it now and making adjustments now is one of the best things that I can do to prevent that from becoming the case. Having the data now means I can make adjustments now rather than waiting until it's not necessarily too late, but until it's crossed the threshold into unhealthy territory. And the great thing with blood sugar regulation is there are so many things that you can do to improve your body's insulin response. And it's also something that's so hard to like objectively feel, right? Like there's days that I've been tracking where my score was much lower, days where it was much higher. I don't think I personally could have told you, like if you asked me at the end of the day, like, how did your blood sugar feel? I would not have been able to tell you, like, just based on how I felt, if the way that I ate that day was more or less negatively impacting my blood sugar. So being able to have that objective data right there in front of me is really helpful, just for awareness, first of all, and also for shifting my habits. And what is it, like only 7 to 12% of Americans are metabolically healthy? Like 1 in 3 people has pre-diabetes, and 80% of them don't even know that. Especially because we tend to associate insulin resistance with people who are overweight, but you can have insulin resistance and be thin. You can have metabolic syndrome and be thin. But I mean, you guys know me, I'm all about prevention. Like, I don't want to wait until there's something really bad for me to try to fix it. Like, I'd rather optimize everything now so that I can feel good now and continue to feel good for the rest of my life, hopefully very, very long life. Wanted to go for a walk, but apparently I have more to say about this. This is why it like pisses me off that it's so hard to get access to continuous glucose monitors, like in the current medical system. Like, you can't just walk into your doctor's office and ask them to give you a continuous glucose monitor. It has to be prescribed, and most doctors won't prescribe it unless you're already diabetic or maybe pre-diabetic, I don't know. But basically, you're like not allowed to get access to this data that can prevent you from becoming diabetic until you cross that threshold and are diabetic. It makes no sense. Like, make it make sense. And this is why I love what Levels is doing, is because they're making this technology that has the power to like transform the trajectory of your health so much more accessible. Last few days, I have been experimenting with different meals and like trying to build the meals with blood sugar response in mind. And so I have been testing out a variety of kind of the same-ish breakfast, but I've been doing a relatively like low carb, high fiber, high protein, high fat breakfast with eggs and kale and bacon and cheese, etc. And as one would maybe expect, my blood sugar is responding more favorably to that. And it's interesting now that I think of it, I think these meals that I am shifting towards now, particularly the breakfast, but also some of the dinners that I'm thinking about making, are very similar to how I tend to eat in the winter. Like, I've made multiple videos about how I approach seasonal dieting, and my diet in the fall and winter does tend to be lower carb, higher fiber, higher protein. So this feels like a pretty easy and natural shift to make, because it is still a way that I would normally eat, just in a different season. But basically, I am pleased to report that my blood sugar is responding the way I would expect it to a meal that is more optimized for blood sugar response. So I came up with this steak salad recipe that I've made the last 2 nights, which first of all is delicious, and second of all, my blood sugar loves it. As in, you wouldn't know that I ate anything after eating it, and it's like it's a large bowl. The salad is the volume of my head. But like, look at this. This is my blood sugar in the last 2 hours since eating the dinner. Like, just flatline, super stable. I've now been using Levels for a month, so I want to take a little look-see back at the data and see where I've made some improvements. So this is some of my first few days of using the app. You can ignore the calories because there were some things that I did not log accurately when it came to the calories. But I was starting out with scores of like 70, 72, didn't hit 79 this day. Not bad, but you can see this chart is just not super pretty. Lots of spikes, lots of hills and valleys here. And now in the last few days, like, look at these charts. Like, this just looks so much cleaner, so much happier. Like, there's not even like, wow, not much going on, nothing over where I want to see it, no crashing, etc. My average glucose went down a little bit, but still not where I want to see it. My meal score did go up. That's a good thing. Went from low 5s to mid 6s. Levels wants to see you at a 7 though. So again, room for improvement. Spike count, or the number of times that my glucose spikes during the day, went from an average of mid 3s to now mid 2s. Spike time, or total time spent with glucose above where it like should be, went from a little bit over 5 hours to 3.5 hours. So as a whole, overall, after just a month of doing this, I'm feeling quite a bit more confident in the trajectory of my health via diet as indicated by blood sugar response. But I clearly still have a little bit more work to do, so I'm going to continue using Levels to see if I can really like get myself to those
optimal zones. At the same time, I think it's important to note that I'm not gonna let this take over like my life and diet. I think it could be very easy for some people to do this and end up using it in a not very constructive way. But like, I don't plan on entirely cutting out kombucha just because it clearly spikes my glucose a little bit more than I would like to. I don't plan on never eating pizza again because it was like the worst thing that I ate for my blood sugar in these last 30 days. What I do plan on doing is working on my diet using levels to get myself to the point where I am in all of the optimal ranges and I know what it takes to be there so that I can use that as kind of my like default way of eating, but then still, like, you guys know me, I don't restrict foods other than gluten because I have celiac disease, but like, it's never my goal to just like purely optimize my health and never eat anything good ever again. But I do want to know where that like optimal baseline is so that I have a target to aim for. But I'm really happy with my progress so far. I think doing this brought so much awareness to my diet in the context of blood sugar. Anytime you track your food in any capacity, it's gonna bring different levels of awareness. Like, I always recommend people track their macros for a while because that brings a whole level of awareness to what you're eating, and tracking your blood sugar is the same. Like, it just brings a different level of awareness to the food that you're consuming and how it's impacting your body. So I'm curious if you guys have ever used a CGM. Let me know in the comments what insights you got about your body from it. And for everyone else, do make sure you check out Levels at levels.link/fitandnerdy to get yourself 2 additional months for free with the Levels annual membership. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does support me and my channel. I really genuinely appreciate it. Please share this video with your friends, your family, your gym buddies. If you want to see more content from me all about health and fitness, you can check it out over here. To see future videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the little notification bell so you get notified when I post a video, and I will see you very soon. Bye.